Golden Sun. I have a lot of fond memories with this game. When I bought my Game Boy Advance, I didn't know what games to buy. Truthfully, I don't remember what games I bought with the system, but I do know that Golden Sun was one of them. I remember at the time I was in Walmart, looking at those glass cases, realizing I could go to GameStop, but that was a whole 60 minutes away, and I didn't feel like driving an hour just one way to buy a game for my new system. So, looking at the games, I thought the box of Golden Sun looked interesting. I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know what kind of game it was. Looking back at it, it was kind of foolish not to do any sort of research first, but my gamble paid off, because Golden Sun was one of the best purchases I made for that little handheld console. Let me just give a quick disclaimer that I've sadly lost a lot of the footage I had for this game. When I was recording it, my hard drive decided to crap out on me, and I couldn't recover it. Damn. So, a lot of the video you're going to see is from the beginning of the game, and mid to late portion of it. I wasn't about to start over. Now that that's out of the way, I can start this review properly. Golden Sun is an RPG, and an extremely lengthy one at that. You play as Isaac, a young lad who starts off by getting out of bed and heading outside to find that a massive thunderstorm is drenching the area. In addition, a massive boulder threatens to destroy the village. Isaac and his pal Garrett run around town trying to assist where they can, and another character named Jenna's brother, Felix, ends up getting lost to a flood. A few years later, Isaac, Garrett, and Jenna are training their synergy, or magic, with a man named Kraden, who wants to enter a holy sanctuary in the north of town. From here, the crew solves a few puzzles and enters a hidden room that holds the elemental stars, which hold the power of alchemy. In most games, alchemy is a good thing, but in this one, it apparently would cause the world to become severely unstable. Without going into too much detail, it would just be a bad thing. Two of the game's villains, Satharos and Minardi, take 3 of the stars from Isaac, but have to evacuate because, well, did I mention that this room is inside of a frickin' volcano that's ready to erupt? An ancient being simply known as the Wise One gives Isaac a mission: prevent the villains from getting to the lighthouses and activating them with the elemental stars. So from here, Isaac and Garrett set out to do that, and at the same time save their friends, of which got kidnapped and are being used as hostages. And that's the intro to Golden Sun. Yes, I skipped a lot of the details, but the game is very text heavy, and it may be an hour or two before you actually get past all the intro parts. Besides, with RPGs, I do like to skip on story details because, at least for me, that's a lot of the fun of playing the game. If I give you the story, it may sap a lot of the enjoyment out of it. But moving on. If you've played an RPG before, you know the basics. You run around, talking to villagers to get info on where to go and what to do next. You can buy equipment and supplies in towns. You can rest at an inn in order to restore all of your statuses. You can find 2 extra party members, one by the name of Ivan, who is the strongest magic caster, and Mia, the main healer of the group. You run around dungeons on an overworld map, fighting in random battles, and on occasion finding a boss that will just whip your ass around a bit. But if that's all the game had, it would be a basic RPG, and not one that really breaks the mold. So let me move on to the unique portions of the game. First off, every character has an elemental affinity. Isaac is the ground-based warrior, Garrett commands fire, Ivan holds the power of thunder, and Mia likes to use ice and water-based attacks. These elemental traits may not do much in the game, but I guess that they may seem to slightly affect some defensive and offensive stats, although I've personally never really noticed a difference. But what is noticeable is the fact that what elements you have equipped on that character will govern what spells and abilities that the characters can use. But there are ways to change this, and that's when we come to the Djinn system. After you leave Vale, you encounter a little brown creature running around known as a Djinni. This creature will join you and become equipped to Isaac. These little beasts have several uses. First, I must note that each of these Djinn also have an element attached to them. You may think that you may want to attach the earth-based Djinn to Isaac, but that's not necessarily be the case. You may want to mix up the Djinn to give characters different skill sets to accommodate your playstyle. For example, if you give Isaac a few ground-based Djinn, he'll have a basic cure skills, but if you mix up a few ground and I think a water-based one, he'll learn a revive ability. This is because mixing up a character's equipped Djinn alters the character's class, which is what the skill set is based on. The other thing to keep in mind is that the spells aren't the only thing that are altered when fiddling around with held Djinn. Your character's stats are changed too. It's definitely encouraged to play around with the Djinn and find a good set that suits you. But there is another thing to keep in mind. The Djinn have another option available. You can use them in battle as a sort of summons. Each Djinn can be used in 2 ways. Using the Djinn itself and then the actual summon option, which only appears when you either use a physical Djinn in battle or set it to standby. When this happens, a summon option appears. Using this summon acts as a powerful spell, and when done will boost that character's elemental power for a few turns. There are 4 different levels of summons for each element, and each level requires that many Djinn put on standby. For example, the Summon Judgment, the ultimate level 4 ground summon, you need to have put 4 ground Djinn on standby. For Kieran, you need 2 fire Djinn. It may not make sense for now, but if you would play the game, it does. I will also say there's some tactical pieces for using the Djinn. Each one has a different ability. One will restore the party's health a bit, one will attack and disregard defense, one will put an enemy to sleep. You can use these gen as often as you'd like, but if you want to reuse them without doing a summon, you need to use the gen a second time to set it to the character. You can also do this outside of battle. Finally, summoning a gen will require some recovery time for the gen used to compile a summon. In battle, after every turn, one gen will become available. Outside of battle, the gen will automatically be put on standby as you're walking around. Again, it may sound confusing, but it's really not once you play the game. So let's move on to the battles themselves. They're simply fantastic, which is good, because you'll be in a lot of them. When entering a fight, the arena will spin to a cool effect. Some spells will utilize that rotation, which I've enjoyed every time. The only thing that may annoy some people is that the text from the battle showing what skills were used and how much damage was done must manually be trudged through. This can be slightly annoying, but being that I grew up on games like Dragon Warrior, it didn't bother me too much. Speaking of spells, they are simply fantastic looking. Golden Sun really pulls out the stops when showing off what the Game Boy Advance can do in terms of graphics. Whether it be the gen, spells, or even summons, the visuals are jaw-dropping. I remember using Ragnarok for the first time, a basic spell that Isaac learns fairly early in the game, and just being shocked from seeing the huge sword smack the ground and then explode into the enemy. Just wow. I will say that you may have noticed on the world map, the screen shakes. This was just my ROM. Since I don't have any way right now of recording a Game Boy game, I need to use an emulator. And apparently this ROM doesn't like a smooth world map. I can promise you that the actual game doesn't do this. But back to the spells. You'll need to use them outside of battle as well as during. There are many puzzles to be seen in Golden Sun, and some of these require spells that need to be cast. Thankfully, your character's PP, or synergy points, slowly regenerate when walking around, and most spells that need to be used to solve puzzles don't take up a lot of that energy. Some puzzles may be somewhat frustrating, so if you're not good at puzzles, you may want an FAQ nearby. I'm usually not too great at them, but I was able to get through the game without a walkthrough many years ago, so you should be fine. The sound of the game is just as good as the visuals. The effects themselves are your average RPG stuff, but there's a cool effect where different NPCs are given different pitches while talking to simulate different voices. I've always liked that. In addition, the soundtrack is amazing. Just like the graphics, it shows what the Game Boy can do with its tiny little speakers. I think that's really all I have for Golden Sun. Simply put, it's not your standard console RPG. The battles are fun, the story is engaging, and the gen system gives an interesting take on class and the summon system. If you're a fan of RPGs and have a lot of time to kill, pick this one up. It's definitely worth your time. Final score? 10 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.